planned, well thought out, well organized podcast.
About punishment.
Punishment, not like S&M punishment. No, like the ways we got punished in prison punishment.
Yeah.
We're talking about the way we got punished by the books and the special ways that staff would go out of their way to creatively punish us. And I don't mean creatively like timeouts. I mean creatively like washing toilets with toothbrushes.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. It's been some, I don't know, some months. What is happening?
What's
What is
happening?
happening?
Marcy, I want you to know your video looks stellar.
Well, thank you. I want our family, our On the Recyard family, to know that Tunchi scrolled in 90 seconds before it was time to go live and told me that my video looked like hell, and I realized I was connected to the wrong internet, and that's why we were a minute late. We probably lost our audience.
I doubt it.
I
I doubt
do
it.
see y'all. I do see y'all coming in. I do see y'all coming in the chat. Hi, Lori. Welcome. Thank y'all for joining the show. It is our favorite night of the week. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all showing up for us every week, and we appreciate you doing all the things, sharing the live, liking the live, commenting on the live. I see Angela Thornton watching. Hello, Angela. And we just appreciate all those things that you do to help boost our show. And we're gonna get into it. And Angela's here. She'll have some thoughts on the way that people get punished inside of Texas prisons. Before we do that, let's do, if I can figure out how to do it, let's do this.
It's our first night, y'all.
Hey, Tunchi, let's do a week. Dooch, what happened this week? I don't even know what week we're in.
It's already almost the end of March, mid-March, right? And it's tomorrow's the 20th. Marcy, last week I was recovering from our rally and our advocacy day and work, and Friday went to Fort Worth to Sade and Sean Wright's wonderful Day of Empathy event. I was excited, and then I got just dearly ill. Thank God I had Melissa with me. She drove me home. I apparently was delirious in the back seat and had her call people. Lori was like, I don't know what meeting she's talking about. And she's like, I don't either. She just keeps saying, Lori, meeting. Did you tell Marcy? Did you tell Peaches? I don't know. I was rambling, got home, delirious, went to urgent care Sunday, had tonsillitis. Barely got my voice back today. It was missing for a couple of days. Sounds like somebody I know. So I'm having a sinking suspicion. Don't open your eyes big like that. Where I might have picked up this little gem of a germ. I'm just saying.
We did not see each other for a whole week. You were sick on Friday. You didn't just get sick when we saw each other on Friday. That germ came from Austin, Texas. Somebody, you know what? All those little bars you walk to and from.
Why'd you out me like that?
Well, I'm just letting you know. I did not get you sick. If you had told me you got sick after I was sick at the February 21st, our Texas Our Power event,
Now,
if you had told me you'd got sick right after the rally or another time that we were actually together, you could put it on me.
Now, I'm going to give this to you, and I want my little scientist in the chat. It takes about 3 to 4 days for a bacteria virus to manifest, right? It's little dormant period, right?
Not a week.
So Hear me out. So I started not feeling well Monday. You remember I told you and Lori, I said I've got fever blisters all over my lips. So I knew I had a bug then. And
Honey,
my
I thought
body
that was
was,
some other kind of outbreak.
oh, you dirty bitch. I fought that hard and long, and I was feeling a little bit better Friday. And then, more stress and traffic, it kind of collapsed me again. So the bug was there come Monday.
Monday, you said 3 to 4 days. I saw you Friday and Saturday.
You saw me Wednesday, Thursday. Come on, Marcy. I love you. And it's okay if the germ came for you. That's what friends are
Listen,
for.
I'm gonna start bringing this little incubator of a toddler that I have. No, not incubator, petri dish. Petri dish
I
of a
don't,
toddler that I have living here, and I'm just gonna start rubbing his little germy body all over your apartment.
hey, because I bet you
Drool, fingers, all of it.
when you talk about what a nightmare you were when you were incarcerated, when you lived with look at that face. When you lived with somebody, you wouldn't even let them hoes wear their shower shoes in. What would happen if one of them same hoes got sick?
Somebody asked me that in one of my comments. They said, "What happens if your cellie gets sick?" Baby, they don't care. You you could have somebody just with the worst. You could be locked in this tiny room the size of a bathroom with 2 people living in it, and one of them could be vomiting everywhere, sick as a dog, lying on the floor, sick, and you're locked in there with them.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to rescue you. Nobody's nobody's
But were you
separating
mean to
y'all.
them? Were you mean to your
I wasn't
cellies?
mean to people when they were sick. This
You
is a
didn't
whole
get
nother
mad at them?
episode. I was mean to a someone that stored her dirty maxi pad, like, stuck it to the side of the toilet. I was mean to
What?
that girl. Yeah.
But you were never mad at your cellie when they got sick and you were trapped in there with them?
How can you be mad when somebody's sick?
I'm
What
just
kind of
asking.
monster do you think I am?
I mean, you fucking went like you shamed the out of people over them shower shoes, and I
You
don't
could
think
not
it
wear
was.
shoes in the cell, and there was some real rough times behind that. And that listen, I was institutionalized. I know you're gonna
Honey,
let me make
I'm
it.
gonna let
That's
you
how
make
it
it.
was in there.
What was your week like then, before the event? You can tell people about the event, but what else was your week like?
I don't know. I don't have a
I
clue.
worry. I worry that you're getting some type of memory loss. Is it menopause, honey?
I think it's because I work from 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night every day. I think it has something to do with that. And then I still live with my sweet grandmother who wonders why I don't have time to get other things done.
I mean, and then you have a boss that's like, "Why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? Did you read my email? Has nobody responding?" What a
This is what I
nightmare
wanna
she is.
know.
What is on
I
my
wanna
face?
Do you know what about when someone sets the expectation like, "Hey, we need to respond in if we're on a WhatsApp chat within about 24 hours." But then if somebody doesn't respond in 2 hours, they start sending question marks and telling you to acknowledge with an emoji. It's ridiculous.
Honey, that was a personal message.
But that's not no, that was in the group chat, in the work chat, but we're not talking about all that. And it's right, Rayanne, you're right. It's stress and having to remember too many things.
Honey, look what's wrong with my face right now.
I don't know, honey. I wonder that all the time.
Shut up.
I
Hey,
don't know what it
I
is.
just got to tell y'all, I was late to the show because I was in another meeting. And you know what? When I got up to get my water when you were trying to fix your video, I realized I'd put my little TV dinner out to put in the oven and forgot. So I had to pop it in the oven. So when I have to jump up and take it out of the oven, that's what's happening. Please continue.
Oh my gosh, here we
It's
go.
chicken nuggets and macaroni and
We
cheese.
did we do have a good show. We're talking about how we got punished in prison, but we do want to talk about the Day of Empathy event hosted by the Right Cause Urban Youth Conservation and the Day of Dream.org. So it was Day of Empathy Texas. It was in Fort Worth, Texas, in Como at the Como Community Center. And we had a panel discussion about excessive sentencing, which kind of led to youth justice. One of our Lioness members was on the panel too, actually. Jen was on the panel, both over sentenced as youth. Um, it was really good. It was great. Boys and Girls Club was there, lots of young adults, um, teenagers, lots of different community members from all over. And I thought it went great.
Yeah, it was great. Really was.
The rights, they feed us well. They give us gifts.
They're
If
lovely.
I mean, if y'all aren't going to their events, you're missing out because they really do it big and they do it really well. So, and it was just really good conversation, really good topic. Lauren Whitney moderated the panel, and yeah, I think it was great. So, do you have anything to say before I move on?
No.
Nothing. Okay. Um, we're talking about this is why I wanted to talk about punishment in prison. And there are policies and procedures. There's a whole handbook. There's a whole disciplinary handbook separate from the regular handbook, pages and pages of exact policy, what to do when someone breaks a rule, blah, 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 blah. We all know there's a lot of policies on paper that don't make it into fruition, don't make it into practice. Um, but the first time I ever got punished in prison was for taking a biscuit from the chow hall at
Taking a
breakfast.
biscuit.
Yeah. They only fed us 2 times a day. I was at Plain State Jail.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
And so you would try to hoard a little bit because you got to eat like at 11 a.m. and like 3 p.m. And
Mhm.
that was it. So I had a biscuit I was going to take, or I did take, and I got caught with it coming out of the chow hall. So I think like I imagine, because I have not done time on a men's unit, but from my experience with talking to men, like the punishment would be like, throw that shit away.
Throw it away.
Like,
Right.
throw that away. What are you doing? Or nothing.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, but on that particular unit, my punishment was then we were the first dorm to fall out for chow, a a unit that holds about 2,000 people. And so it's a couple hours long for chow, and my punishment was to stand outside the chow hall while all the other dorms got called to chow and hold both of my arms out. I guess it was 2 biscuits now that I'm remembering because I had one in each hand, and I had to hold both of my arms out with the biscuits in my hand while everybody went to chow. Like, just this right? This
What were you thinking when this was happening? Were you
I mean,
embarrassed? Were you angry?
oh, I was hugely embarrassed. Hugely.
Mm. Would you be embarrassed now, though? Fast
Oh,
forward in your
absolutely not. Yeah.
prison.
But I had just that was the intake unit.
Yeah.
I had probably only been there maybe a month.
Marcy, I don't wanna weaponize this against you, but I can't promise in the future when I have an opportunity to leave you a biscuit.
You get on my nerves so much. I would take a biscuit. I would take one.
Especially when we're at motels and hotels when we travel and they have the little cheap breakfast in the morning. You're just gonna wake up and I'm just gonna put a biscuit on your bed next to your pillow. That's a funny story. Now, do I think that's appropriate? Absolutely don't. Because I think the thing is, what we see, I think it's like when we got punished under the rules, like, hey, you get rec restriction. I mean, do are we over punished versus men? Absolutely. But like, there's some. But I think what I always had a hard time with were these very shaming, like informal type of punishments, because I received those in school, right? Like there's actually some legislation when I worked at the Coalition of Texas Disabilities to like end these informal practices of punishment with kids with disabilities, like being locked in an empty room, right? Like, yeah, like you're not formally written up, but oh, well, I'll take whatever it is you're offering me so I don't formally get written up. But oftentimes those informal things are deeply traumatizing, right? Because they're rooted in shame.
They're harmful, right, they're rooted in shame. That's exactly right. There was another on the Dr. Lane Murray unit, Sergeant Cockrell, I'll just put it
Mm,
out there, which, by the way, I saw on the Facebook page for the Dr. Lane Murray unit that he got some kind, it might have been just your like tenure or whatever, but he had some kind of award and I don't know. And I have a good friend, shout out to Sosa, who always just clowns so hard on those officers' pictures because we just know so many wild stories about
yeah,
them.
yeah.
And then to see him on Facebook getting an award, like we're just anyway, uh, I have a whole nother story about him, but this one is he loved to, if you got caught, we would go to chow and there would be the chow hall and then there would be two entrances. So dorms would flow into both sides. There were two feeding lines. And so if you Jen, if I saw you going in the other door and hey, you're my friend and I'm it's my instinct to say, "Hey," or raise my hand or up or whatever, but he didn't want us doing that. And actually there's no rule against it.
Mhm, mhm.
And actually there's nothing saying we can't say hello to each other in policy. But he didn't want us doing it. So if we did it, he would have us miss chow. You weren't eating. You were getting out of the chow line and not getting sent back to the dorm, but pulling weeds until chow was finished being served. So there was like the fences. There's fences everywhere, like in our background. He would have us pull the grass from at the fence line. Just pull it. Not weeds. I shouldn't even
They
say weeds.
get to eat.
Grass.
You don't get to eat.
You don't get to eat. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about, these weird informal punishments. But and we didn't want to get rolled up. But a lot of times people that were indigent, especially at Lane Murray, I remember even being there as a kid, like that chow hall was you waited the whole fucking day for lunch or dinner, and it's like that. You literally have 2 seconds to eat. Other units weren't like that. So if you missed chow, and I was 18, I was hungry all the time working on the host squad. If I got in trouble and got sent back to the dorm, even though I didn't get written up, I'm going without food.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was the punishment. Getting missing food. Food was a huge punishment. That was widely used by many, many staff members, not just a select few, kind of like what I'm talking about here. But no, food was used as punishment. You live in cell block housing as a G4 on the Dr. Lane Murray unit. And when they would call chow, y'all, they would, you would have to be at your door with your shoes on. Say when the officer came to by and they would open your door. If you're not there, you're not eating. Maybe you're like, "Oh, I'm ready." And then you're like, "Oh, my ID's right here." And you turn. Your cell's the size of a bathroom. They can look in and see that you're ready to go to chow. Like it's ridiculous that this this idea that you have to be standing just like this for them to get you to open the door. And you're not eating. Or maybe you got into it with the officer earlier in the day over something minor, or they wrote you up for something else. They're not even going to roll your door. They're going to walk right by. Man, they love to starve you in cell block. Favorite way to punish. Favorite.
Marcy, I was thinking about the ways that we were punished in TYC, and very peculiar, very weird. Um, we did have timeout. It was like chairs. Like, a lot of SAP people have been to SAP know what that is. Like, you are sitting in a chair in 5-0 position, meaning your hands are on your knees and you're sitting straight up in your chair and you're staring at the
Straight
wall,
ahead.
straight
Yeah.
ahead. And so you would get an 8-hour chair or you would get a 12-hour shift. And that meant when you got to go to the bathroom maybe once or twice, but you are sitting. And I know people may hear that and be like, what's the big deal? You're just sitting in a chair. Oh, try sitting with your feet on the ground, with your hands on your
Flat.
knees,
Your feet are
flat.
flat. I should say that. Your feet are just knee length apart, like just so, and they're flat on the ground. And your legs are at an exact 90-degree angle. Your hands are resting on your knees and your back is straight and you're looking forward. It's
Yes.
not you're relaxing in a chair or
And just
chilling
sitting
in
in
a
a chair.
chair.
Mm-mm. And you have to sit like that um, for 8 to 12 hours. And we had other weird little, we had no talking bans, that you weren't allowed to talk to certain people, or you had to sleep with your door open and the light on for 24 hours. Like, it was these weird, strange little ways to kind of torture us in the name of punishing us.
But it wasn't about punishment, direction,
Right.
or
Right.
rehabilitation. It was about
Yes.
control. And I want you to, like you kind of said, like sitting in this chair in this position for 8 to 12 hours. 8 to 12 hours. The ages of the folks in these facilities are as young as 10. They're kids. It's 10 to 17. I mean, this is how this is yeah,
Yeah, well,
this is
and
wild.
it's safety too. I mean, I know that you and I went through Henley, and Henley was real ghetto and trashy and just all over the place, even when COVID wasn't happening. It's whatever. Them girls that went through Burnett went through
Yeah.
other safety. They went through safety and they did chairs. And Christy's right. They called it props, right? Like proper. You sit in, and they would have the entire group sitting in those chairs for an 8-hour shift. And if one of you made a noise or one of you slumped, then it starts over. And the next day you have to do it again. It's quote unquote behavior modification, right? They call it modification of behavior, but it is just punishment. Oh, one I talk about all the time is when I was at TYC, we were in single cells, and I can still feel it. We did this for hours, Marcy. Step to your door, open your door, step out, close your door. And it's like if they even heard a click of the door, start over, go back in. We did it for hours. We also I know that people will say, let's play bingo. I'm like, get away from me. Like, we played bingo. It was kind of like this weird little punishment torture. You didn't win any prizes, but we sat at these tables in our day room. We weren't allowed to watch TV, and we played bingo for days. For days, Marcy.
What?
Yes. I
What?
wish one of my old TYC people were here, Priscilla or Miko or somebody. We had these round tables, and we were like 4 to a table, and that was our day, kind of our meals would come to us. And we had a little TV room, but they locked it and took the TV out. And so whenever things were like, the staff were like, didn't have nothing for us to do, or they realized that we hated it, the entire dorm would have to sit at the tables with the bingo cards, and it was just someone calling out bingo numbers for days, Marcy. hours at a time. And I remember feeling like I was just gonna. I just remember wanting to like rip my face off because we would have to take turns and call the numbers. And then somebody would say bingo, and then we clear our cards, and then they'd start calling numbers again. Okay, bingo, and it was horrible. I don't know how to explain it for days.
I don't know how to I don't know I don't know how to take that. Every time I think, like, they really do some crazy stuff in the state prisons, you throw out some stuff that they did in the youth prisons.
It was just
This is
it was
wild.
bizarre. It was so weird. I mean, like it I don't know how to describe it. So anytime anybody like wants to play a board game or like bingo or something like I instantly I can feel it. And we were kind of like in our chairs like props. Like there's no getting up and getting water and food. We ate at mealtime, that was it. Go to the bathroom, you sit back down in that chair. And we couldn't talk either. We weren't allowed to sit at the table and talk and bullshit while we were doing this. It was silent other than that person calling the bingo numbers.
No
No
talking.
talking, no eating, no just sitting at that table doing that bingo card, clearing it, doing it again, and no reward for getting bingo. And it was just on and on and on and on.
It seems like some kinda Squid Game thing or
And
some
people
kinda
wonder why I
weird.
am cuckoo bananas.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Um, wow, punishment by bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Laurie says, "Every time you give me a biscuit, I'm gonna give you a bingo card." Just remember that.
Well, when it's
Golly.
it's it's weird, right? Well, and I also was just telling Lori the other day about being punished by when I was in the county youth facility, um, being in a cell that had no windows, had a glass like door where I could see people coming in and out of intake and the other kids going places, and the fluorescent light stayed on. It never turned off. And if y'all think that, okay, well, chairs doesn't sound bad. Well, what do you mean? So what? You're in a cell and the light didn't turn off. Just you got a blanket cover your head. It was so thin I never was able to completely darken. I
That's how it was at the ice
Yes,
house.
and it makes you feel like I remember just clawing at my face. I didn't know what time it was. I didn't know where I was at, and I was in there for days.
That light, I mean, I was just in that conditions. I mean, we hated the lights all the time. It's like living in Walmart lighting,
Yes.
being in prison, the lights are just um, but at the ice house at the crisis management center, that's how that was, and it got turned off, I think, from, like, 12 p.m. to 3 a.m., but I remember when it would turn off, you'd just be like, like, okay, like your whole body. It is. There's a reason that they use that for torture, that is a form of torture, um, and we haven't really gotten to the really physical ways, that staff punish. We didn't get a whole lot of We did get some of this. Noah Asher's watching from LinkedIn, and we did get some of this. He says there was an officer they called the hands of God for how hard he punched, and he punched so often that it was normalized in there. So we got some of that in Texas women's prisons. Definitely, we saw acts of aggression from staff. Um, I was gonna say what I remember is the pepper spray. Um, that being used not to not as self-defense from a staff member, not as, um, to break up a fight to protect someone else, but as it was weaponized to shut people up, a show of power. We had an officer, and they called him Woody. Um, he was a decent looking guy, a kind of a young guy. He was charismatic. People liked him, but one thing that he was known for that became normalized, it became so normalized that we didn't not like him for it. Like, um, is that if you were talking at your cell door when he wanted you to stop talking, or you kept on asking him something when he had already told you no, or you needed a feminine hygiene product and he wasn't bringing it to you, and you kept on about it, he would just walk by and casually get his spray out. I guess it's not pepper spray, but it's, what I'm talking about, the spray. He would just casually get it out and right in your face. The people's face would be at the door. I mean, just point right here in your face. And that's what he was, and it was so normalized. The officer in the picket would write a statement backing him up. I mean, they would all, they just all stuck up for each other. So we saw some of that too, for sure.
That's wild.
Yeah. I can't think of his real name. He
Well, yeah,
he
they would have
was
to measure. I mean, they would have to write him a statement because the spray is measured to make sure how
yeah.
much has been used or not used during a shift.
Oh, he would spray and then call the ICS. And then the statement would be they were trying to harm themselves.
Wow.
That's what I mean, you can spray someone as an officer. Like, the reasons that you would be able to do that is to defend yourself, to maybe if they were trying to hurt each other, to break up a fight, or if, say, they were threatening, like with a razor blade at their wrist, or like threatening to hang, or banging their head against the wall to protect them from themselves, to protect someone from themselves. Not because they were
Yeah.
talking and getting on your
Right.
nerves,
Right.
you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too of I have to go back to TYC again, Marcy. Another way they would punish us is they would um, put us on the floor crew, and they would make us strip and wax the floors over and over and over. I remember, again, being so exhausted and tired. It was like 2 in the morning. We had been doing this for days. Like, they would allow us to go sleep a couple of hours in the dorm and then come back. And we had these 2 huge long hallways. And I can still smell distinctly what stripper and not the fun kind, what floor stripper and wax. And after all these years, and this has been over 30 years, it was like whatever they could do to torture us that was like just never ending and monotonous and for hours at a time, like in the chairs. And there is something about that is it is torturous. And it's not behavior modification, right? Like, how is any of this changing? There's a guy that has worked at the state before, and I don't know why he works there. He's a wonderful academic and medical professional. And he talks about trauma, and he talks about punishment. And he says, punishment works, right? Like, it is a band-aid, it is a stopgap, it is a temporary, immediate stop, right? No, to keep people safe or to change a behavior instantaneously, momentarily. He said, but otherwise, it does not change overall lasting behavior. It does not. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, right, yeah.
Well, especially these aren't like, this is the consequence of your
Right, right.
actions. This is something way beyond that, some of these things that you're talking about. I mean,
Well, and it's
me holding up biscuits in front of the chow hall is like, this is your consequence right
right.
then, for when it's over. It's not days of wildness. It's not sitting in the chair with your back straight and
Well,
not
the
able to
idea though, right, is if we shame people or make something so displeasurable they won't ever do this again, right?
Well, we hear that all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, we hear that in our comment section all the time. We we get our DMs saying, you know, yeah, well, I even have people that went to prison saying, "Well, I didn't like that. I'll never go back." Like, they've even convinced themselves that that's what's keeping them out of
Well, I
prison.
didn't like it either and went back, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's not the deterrence, right? Because the things that drive us to harmful behaviors, it's deeper than that, right? Like, and you're right. People in our comments will say, "Well, prison obviously it worked. You don't want to go back." Well, no, I don't want to go back, but I didn't want to go back the first 2 times I went, right? Like, so what
Yeah.
is the motivator? Is it fear? Fear only lasts so long because then your mental health collapse and you're like, I don't give a fuck anymore because I don't love myself or anybody else. So I'm not afraid anymore. But I think what works now is treating my mental health and having a community of people that I'm accountable to and who are accountable to me, that I have goals, right? That it's future oriented, it's hope oriented. It's not rooted in fear of punishment. I don't know where anybody gets the idea that punishment and fear and shame will just drive something out of somebody. It does not.
Well, it creates trauma. You know? I mean, it certainly can change somebody for the
Right, sure,
worst.
right.
Uh, I don't know, this idea, like, in the military, how they break you down and shame you, and you see that, like, the new boots coming in and doing, like, these wild chores and doing some of the things even that we're talking about here, um, but then kind of turned and empowered in a way, right? That never that turn never happens, for incarcerated folks. It's the same kind of philosophy of break them down, take all of their self away, but then don't unite them as a
Right.
team,
Or build other
don't
skills or build other, well, and right, the military is meant to, it is truly, my father retired from the Air Force and the National Guard. And it is to strip identity, and it is to make you have an identity that is one with everyone. It is to create conformity. It, and there's also building, right? There's this stripping away and tearing down, and then this building. Do I think that that's cool? No, but I mean, in terms of what the military's purpose is, um, and so I guess there's this idea that if we just strip them down and break them down, well, there's nothing being built in that place to begin with, you know? And I think of, and I'm not a fan, we can get in a whole debate about Brianna Brown. I'm not a fan for a lot of reasons, but she's done research on shame. And what she says in one of her books is, there was a judge in Houston years ago that was known to sentence people to all the kind of things that we're talking about. Like, oh, you beat your wife, you're going to go hold a sign out by I-45 that says I beat my wife. And she said, "Do you think his wife wants to go home with him after he's been standing there for 8 hours being shamed and oogled and yelled at? No, because it doesn't work."
the the opposite of that, or not the opposite, but the other end of punishment would be the by the book punishment, which frankly was written with some of these, with not healing, or not even behavior modification. I don't know, but the main way that they want to punish by policy is to separate an incarcerated person from their support system. They want to keep you from phone calls. They want to keep you from visits,
Rick.
um, things that cause further harm, and frankly, from not I don't have statistics on it, but dare I say there are some somewhere. But from my observation of 10 years living in G4 and Gen Pop and the privileged dorm and all the way back down and all the way back up several times, so I was with a wide variety of folks. What I did notice for certain is the G4 dorm where people are getting in trouble, where people have gotten in trouble and end up in this kind of punishment dorm. Um, those folks, visits weren't coming on the weekends. They weren't getting to make a whole lot of phone calls, the majority. They were in much less contact with the outside world. Where the opposite end, the more privileged dorm, I mean, there were 10 phones in that dorm. We were lined up like crazy,
Mhm.
because the stronger support system you have, hmm, community, that that helps our behavior.
Yeah, well, and Jorge's making, and some other folks are talking about rehabilitation. He's making some good points about recidivism rates, and Lori talks about this a lot. Like, don't use those metrics because those are metrics of failure, which focus, like Jorge's saying, which focuses on material assets, right? Um, and it's just this backward ass way of thinking about success and accountability and how do you redirect people's behavior, how do you treat mental illness, and it just would seem to me that because now we're in society where we've swung way hard, not that we haven't been there, but it's even harder in that direction of disappearing people, punishing, and classifying people in black and white term. The hardening um, of schools and society, and um, it's never worked. Right? Like, even if you were somebody that your goal is just to control people, like the medical director I was talking about, like, punishment and shaming are temporary um, controls, but they don't create change, right? Like, because the second your foot's off their neck, they go right back to whatever the behavior was. So we have to talk about, like, when we, and punishment doesn't feel like the right word, consequences or accountability for behavior. I know what's worked for me. What would have, obviously you needed the biscuit, you were hungry, but I'm just saying, in terms of, like, when there is a behavior that needs guidance and redirection, how do we do that? How do you do that with the kids? I'm not a mom, so I don't know. I know with the cat, I don't beat her, I don't shame her, because animals do experience shame too, you know? So what do you do as a caregiver?
I don't I am not equipped to answer what you do with kids. I don't know. Maybe I'm just winging it. I've always just been winging it. I try to talk to my kids. My 2 nephews get it better, get a much more healed, better version of me than my 3 older ones, and they have spoke on that. All of them have spoke on that, you know. Um, but I was just thinking if I would take that question back to the first part of the question, um, like in prison, what do I think would have worked? Because I was someone who got in trouble a lot in prison, but I was in trouble a lot as a reaction to the environment and as a reaction to the way staff treated me. Um, And I realize I get this a lot too when I make a video talking about, this. I get a lot of, comments saying, "Well, why should staff treat you different or well when you treat them bad?" And, "Well, where does it start?" Somebody has to start it, like, the whole culture has to change in there, until they're gone, you know? But I just think a lot of it was a reaction to my environment. Uh, so I just don't even think in that setting I can't think of something that would have worked in that setting, if that's making
No, I
sense.
mean, I hear that, right? Like, because I often say, when like, "Oh, kids just they need more therapy in TJJD." How do you process therapy in that type of environment? You don't. Therapy is dependent on trust with the person receiving and the peer support specialist or the doctor or whatever. So, um, I mean, I'm just thinking of in my own life, right? Like, even through my mental health condition, which BPD folks are a bit hypersensitive to injustice, right? Like, this isn't fair. Like, you're treating me unfairly. We're super hyper. That's what makes us great social justice advocates. But the other side of that is you've harmed me, and I don't feel there's justice for the harm you've created, right? And so the like you were saying, it was reactive to whatever harm was being done to me. And so I'm going to punish you, right? Like, I'm going to punish you with silence, or I'm going to punish you with withdrawing, or I'm going to punish you with throwing myself through your bedroom window, right? Like, I'm going to get you because I feel this great injustice has to be balanced. And I don't know, like, I've really moved away from, not that I can't be petty, but this punishment, like, I'm going to punish you. I, I don't I don't even want that for myself anymore. I just want someone to understand how they affected me. I don't want any harm to come to them. I really don't. And maybe I'm just a little bit, well, and I'm calm right now and I'm not activated too. So that message may be different if something happens an hour from now and suddenly everything goes out the window. But anyway, just thinking through what consequences can look like that don't entail all of the punishment and shame that many of us have experienced.
Well, I think there are, I mean, like, especially BPD kind of things, there are natural consequences that come with, I mean, with one of our or one of my episodes of lashing out, there's the natural consequence that happens is the guilt that I feel afterwards, and the visible harm I've done or hurt I've done to whomever I've lashed out against. That's a natural consequence. That doesn't even need, I mean, does it healing and accountability need to happen? Yes, but another punishment? No, right? I mean, I don't know. And Rayanne's saying treat people with dignity and respect, and support positives so they feel empowered by being better, for sure, right? And you will have prison staff saying, well, they don't treat us with respect. Incarcerated people don't treat us with respect. But again, it has to start somewhere. And then further, and not that prison staff aren't suffering from mental illness, because honestly, I think there might have to be a little something going on for you to apply for that job, you know? But uh, for sure, incarcerated, for sure, incarcerated folks, are suffering. For if you weren't suffering from any kind of mental illness before you got incarcerated, you are in there, suffering from some mental health issues for certain. And I think that the staff needs to be trained and equipped to handle that, because that's punished also.
Yeah.
Mental health episodes are punished. One of when you asked me, like, what have people been asking on social media, one of the questions was, what happens if you have an anxiety attack in prison? Well, you go to solitary confinement.
Yeah. Or you
That's
just
what
you
happens.
learn
They
to
come,
really hide it as well as you can, because if you freak out or have an episode of any kind, you're gone. You're gone.
you're in handcuffs, several officers in handcuffs, several officers escorting you to solitary confinement.
Well, and what
Yeah.
you said reminds me of what we hear from the youth prison system, about these kids are so bad, they're attacking our staff, and our staff, they're hurting our staff. And and hey, I understand about basic safety. That's not what I mean. It's the blame is on the children, right? And a few legislators have gotten it, but the response for me is they are children, deeply mentally ill, wounded children, right? In reaction. It's what Mandy always tells them. These children are reacting to whatever is happening to them. And at the end of the day, the person with the greater responsibility is the adult. The person with the greater responsibility inside adult facilities is the staff.
The people getting
Right.
paid.
Just like in an organization, the person with the greater responsibility is us in leadership. There's just another level of duty and accountability that people have who are in roles of power, of authority, or leadership. Period. So I don't want to hear it about, oh, well, they don't do us right. It doesn't matter. You are in a position of power or leadership. So you are at another level, honey. What a piss poor response. What a childish, immature response to point to your, to have that power dynamic and point to the kids, to the incarcerated person, right? It's
To the
really,
people being
yes.
oppressed.
I mean, you see that even in
Let's
organizations. Well, what I've always said in the places I've worked, I understand, but you're the leader here. So your response has to come with more care, thought, and responsibility because this is the role that you chose to have. I mean, I've learned that in my own life. Oh, I want to punish people or I want to be petty, nasty petty, or fucking fucked up or whatever. I don't have the luxury of that. I am in a role of leadership and responsibility that is different than just somebody coming and going and participating and doesn't have a role with responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, and that should trickle all the way down, right? From from the people in sitting in the offices, and if you're in Texas, sitting in the offices in Huntsville or wherever,
Mhm.
to the warden's office and to the lieutenant's office and major's office and on down. Um, and what we've witnessed, or what I've witnessed for certain, is the same kind of some of the same weird ways that we would get punished or humiliated or shamed, that would happen from ranking staff members
Yeah.
on down, you
Right, because
know?
it's an
It was that cold.
abuse of power, is all that it really is, right? Like, it's an abuse of power. And I'm not to say that people that are in roles of responsibility, don't make mistakes or not human, right? But there's just another level of care, uh, that has to go into how they behave and accept responsibility and accountability and stuff. But, yeah. Scrubbing what'd you say earlier? Scrubbing
I
baseboards
mean,
with
yeah, we
toothbrushes. Remember that?
I'm trying to remember his name, Mr. Reese. There was another one too that was Mr. Reese was nicer, but although I think I saw the I'm sorry, Mr. Reese, if this is wrong.
What? We
I
are
won't
not
even say
liable.
it. No, an officer that had a similar name and face of him, at least, got arrested for inappropriate relationship, and
Well,
I think the charge was actually rape,
Jesus
um,
Christ.
for an incarcerated person, yeah, so but but and there was another one, I can't remember his name, but they like to do that. They like to, um, "Oh, I saw you stop talking you stopped in the aisle to say something to someone in a cubicle?
God.
Oh, that's a case, that's a write-up." Um, or, "Do you wanna come scrub the day room floor with a toothbrush?"
God.
And this is the thing, of course I don't want to go spend hours on my hands and knees in front of everyone in the dorm, scrubbing n something that can't even be scrubbed,
Mhm.
with a toothbrush. Of course I don't, but also,
I don't want that
I don't
case.
I don't want that case. I don't want to not be able to call home and talk to my kids.
Mhm, mhm.
So I'm going to pick being shamed and humiliated every single time. Every time. I'm gonna ask for it. I'm not just gonna pick it. I'm gonna if I get caught doing something, and when I say when I get caught doing something, I don't mean making a shank or taking drugs.
Right.
I mean staying too long in the sink area because I got into a conversation when I was washing my hands after going to the bathroom, or sharing a meal with somebody, cooking for my friend and taking her some food and the officer happened to see it. These are the kind of things I'm talking about. If I got caught doing that, I would ask the officer, "Is there something else I can do? Is there something else can I make it? I'll clean the dorm. I'll clean the toilets. Is there something else I can," because I didn't want to mess up an opportunity to talk to my kids because my mental health kept me from calling lots of times,
Mhm, mhm.
because there were lots of times that I was mentally unstable and freaking out, frankly. Then that require all of that. You don't just, I should say, when you have mental health issues, the punishment is not just solitary confinement because a case is coming with that. I promise. And oftentimes the case is exaggerated to be like you threatened an
Right.
officer. So it's like a major case, then it affects your parole and everything else. So not only are you punished by not talking to your kids, you're punished by staying away from them longer. The way that they keep use your family as leverage and your connection to your people as leverage. My first major case for hugging someone, I had 4 months contact visitation restriction. 4
Jesus!
months. 4 months. From a disciplinary captain that I'll quite frankly came from hobby and was known for having relationships with
The
women,
nerve.
incarcerated women. The nerve of him is right. The nerve of him. My grandmother came to visit me. She said, "I just don't understand why you're behind this glass." And that captain was the warden on duty in the visitation room. I said, "Go ask that man, grandmother. Ask him what I did." I hugged somebody, the top of their shoulders. They were sitting on the floor. It wasn't even a full body on hug. It was just a hug. 4 months. And he said, "Tell your granddaughter she needs to behave." Yeah, man. This is the kind of punishment we're talking about.
Yeah.
This ridiculous notion of it harming families,
Well, yeah, and we
literally.
talk a lot about this here, and y'all can research it. You can Google. Yeah, there's some great NPR studies and research. Women are punished more extreme and more often. Incarcerated women are punished more often and more extreme than incarcerated men. Period. Period. That's data. Um, and when we talked to some of our formerly incarcerated, you remember we went to dinner and it was the Lee College thing, and we were having a lovely dinner, and we were talking about how stuff that would happen, and
And we're just casually
just
talking about
casually
we're just
talking.
casually bringing
We're
some
talking
of
about
it
strip
like
search
it's
and this is stuff, and I remember Tracy and girl, I cannot.
Adam
Adam,
and
yep, it was
yeah.
Adam, his wife. And they're just looking at us like, "What?" And then Adam begins to tell a story about, "Yeah, well, this happened. I got into a fight and it was on the cameras, but, uh, officer was, the captain or whoever is just like, I'm just gonna tear it up and throw it away. Like, or made it minor or something." And it was just like, it's no big deal. Like, you're finna go home. And we were like, "What? We
Yeah.
would never we would have been said goodbye paroled." And so when we talk about punishments specifically for women, it's not just this weird crazy shit they make us do. It is also the legitimate punishment that happens in excess and pettiness that women experience that men don't. Now, I'm not saying men never do, but predominantly women experience.
For sure. We do hear some of the disruptors some that are really resisting some of that oppression and trying to make change and dropping forms and grievances. They're getting some of this pettiness, as far as our male counterparts or people doing time on a men's unit. But other than that, for sure, we're at our hour, girl. We're at our
We're
hour.
at our hour.
How did that happen? Because we got more to say on
Yeah.
this. We could go
Girl,
on because
sometimes
there's a
when
lot
we
more
talk about
stories.
stuff, like, I just like talking about that bingo stuff and other stuff. I'm like, girl, I forgot all about that. But it's like I consciously forgot about, but subconsciously, that kind of whatever those people did to me in all these really weird ways has really shaped and really
Yeah.
affected my mental health in ways that sometimes I don't even make the connections. And I'm still making connections as a middle-aged person.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, as an older person, it's wild. It is wild.
Yes,
As an
as
older lady,
as an
you're
elderly
still
lady.
making those
Yeah.
connections. Well, y'all, we have one more Wednesday before April. Do we?
God bless.
Yes,
Yes.
we do. In 2 weeks from now, we will have the Responsible Business Initiative for Justice, the Dallas branch um, hiring manager, Taja Herford, will be on. And I'm really excited for that conversation to kick off Second Chance Month. Next week, honeys, we don't know what we're talking about. Leave us a comment and tell us what you want to talk about, and we'll look and pick one, I promise. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for sharing the live. Thank you for liking it. Thank you for commenting. Loved the conversation in the chat tonight. If you're listening wherever you hear your favorite podcasters, please do leave us a review. That helps our podcast to reach an even broader audience. Final thoughts, last thoughts, Tooch?
Y'all spam Marcy with
Nothing.
pictures of biscuits.
Okay. I love you all. We will see y'all next week.
Thank y'all for hanging out with us on the Rec Yard Women's Prison